Hello and welcome to your Capricorn January 2020 reading. Hi, I'm Nigel Saint James. For those of you who have dropped in for the first time, and for those of you who subscribe and come by regularly, thank you very much. It's appreciated, although I do love providing these readings for you. Thank you for your loyalty and for your interest in the channel's content. Wow, Capricorn. Now listen, this deck of cards which I have was given to me by my daughter. She found it in a flea market, and it has interspersed among it the Chinese I Ching, as well as the Nordic runes. The Nordic runes being those mystical letterings that were in mythology discovered by Odin, often placed in wood. And so, as was a lot of their material, and of course it has deteriorated over the years, but we've pieced together what they mean. It's the Elder Futhark is what this lettering is known as, from about the period 100 to about 800 AD. There's also mystical lettering from the Near East, Kabbalistic intuition and mystical lettering, as well as North American Indian mysticism and ancient Egyptian mysticism as well. Not in all of the cards, but should they come up, we shall see what they mean for you. Anyway, this is of course suitable for those of you who have Capricorn as your sun sign, as well as Capricorn rising or Capricorn moon. In fact, if you have a lot of planets in your horoscope and natal chart in Capricorn, this will also be appropriate for you. So let's see what there is in store, shall we? Let's get things underway and see what's coming. There's a couple there have jumped out. What's this? This is the Mother of Cups in the North. Look at the back of the cards, incidentally. It's quite interesting, isn't it? The Mother of Cups in the North. I haven't forgotten that one down there. What's this? The Son of Stones in the West. The Mother of Wands in the East. The Mother of Cups in the North, the Son of Stones in the West, the Mother of Wands in the East. What else do we have here? The Ten of Wands. The Ten of Wands. See, there's an I Ching hexagram there, so we'll see what that has to say. And what do we have from somewhere in the middle, shall we? Okay, what? This perhaps? I think so. The Magician, splendid. Well, let's see. Why don't you come and have a good... I love the artwork on these things. Let's have a look at these together while I do the reading for you. Okay, now let me just get the vibe. There it is. Let's have a look at this card first. The Mother of Cups in the North. Well, I don't know if you can make this out, but this is called Venus of Willendorf. Now, this thing here, you may be interested to know, is actually a depiction of a statue, one of many statues that have been found in Germany and Austria. The statue itself is about 4 inches high, or 10 centimeters, and it's been dated, this one known as Venus of Willendorf, has been dated to being about 27,000 years old. And many of the other statues around that area have also been dug up, and they're also dated to be about 25 or 27,000 years old. Here we have a figure of what is clearly a woman. You can notice the enlarged breasts, the stomach which is enlarged, and without going into the detail of it, you can see here the enlarged genitalia. Now this suggests, according to the archaeologists, that this is a fertility figure, or was in fact a fertility goddess, that our ancestors from 27,000 years ago were dealing with. But for our purposes now, I'm looking at her as being the Queen of Thrones, and I think people who might be of interest to you during this period are Cancer. I think she is in the suit of water, being the equivalent of the Queen of Cups, and I think you might also have a Gemini or someone with a Gemini rising who is close to you during this period. Now, this particular person is generally, and now that we've seen her, I'll just move it out a bit so we can see it in connection with the other cards. Generally, what I'd say is that her characteristics depend mostly on the influences that affect her from the outside. She's very much at the disposal of every impact and impression. Now, although court cards can be both male and female, irrespective of how they're drawn, I'll refer to her as a woman for the obvious reason here. And she is a woman, I think, who is very intuitive. Yeah, very intuitive. She's a keen observer. She's quite dreamy and tranquil, almost poetic, kind, yet in a sort of a passive way. You may have some of those influences here, but this is a card, I feel, which is very much subject to the influences of cards around it. And in particular, this card here, Kali, is of influence over her, I think. But to get back to her, I think what concerns me about it, well, it's not a concern really, it's really more of a prediction, is that as the female adult, she's water, and she's in the suit of cups, which is water. Now, the watery part of water makes it very transparent, very translucent, perhaps. And so what this means is that she's very capable of seeing into other people and reflecting them back onto themselves. She's very perceptive, but she has the ability to basically to merge into her environment and to merge into the people that are around her. And just as your mother always said, you are judged by the company that you keep. And this is a time when you need to be careful of the company that you do keep, because you will take on their characteristics. So don't surround yourself with anybody who is negative or pessimistic. Please make sure you surround yourself with people who are optimistic. I think there's a lot of love and harmony and nurturing around here, and there is acceptance of all things by her, so she can become one to merge with them. There is also, I think, a feeling of emotional abundance here. We have, I see Mercury, the planet, around here as well, and I see the star sign of Cancer in here, because I'm getting a lot of Cancer around it. So we have the intelligence of Mercury in Cancer. And you'll therefore have the ability to make friends and to form strong bonds with people. And you'll have a great degree of rich insight into those other people. And so it's actually going to be a very good time for selling if you're involved in selling. So those of you who are in retailing or in consulting, a very good time, I think. I do get the impression, though, that she is a woman who could have been in a relationship which ruined her financially or emotionally, because being attracted to the wrong person and taking on their energy would have had disastrous effect on her life. And I get the feeling that she's perhaps carrying some scars from that time, and therefore she really isn't reflecting her purity and her essence as she perhaps should be. I won't say anything about how that might affect you, but you might be able to relate to that. And all I will say is that you should be very let things go, is what I'm saying. Let things go. And if you're in a relationship at the moment, don't let past baggage consume your ability to bring things forward. We might have a look at this card that's underneath her, which is the Ten of Wands. Now, it's kind of melodramatically, I suppose, described as being oppression. And I do say there's some melodrama associated with that, because, well, I will say this. I have Saturn ruling the third decan of Sagittarius for this card, you know, that 13th to the 22nd of December.
Now, Sagittarius wants to expand and express its optimism and its spiritual side, but Saturn is all about restriction, and so it represses the expansive nature of Sagittarius. The card refers, therefore, to me to the influence of Saturn in Sagittarius, which is a problem. Sagittarius is spiritual, fast, light, elusive, and Saturn is material, slow, heavy, obstinate, and obscure sometimes. And in that sense, I'm looking at the title, but I don't go by titles. But in that sense, the whole picture suggests oppression and repression. It's a kind of stupid, obstinate cruelty from which it might seem to you that there is no escape from something. In a sense, it's like that you have a will which has not understood really anything, or you have a lust for a result, but I feel that there's some time needs to be let flow in order to get the best results from the situation. Let me pull out again so we can see it here. Now, there is, I think, the feeling that your will to do something is kind of blocked. No matter how hard you try, you feel that you can't achieve it, and obviously you can get frustration and irritability as a result of these desires which may be suppressed within you. And in some degree, and you must not let this happen, you can begin to lose faith in yourself and your ability to get what you want. Now, this can represent an actual person putting someone down and dominating their spirit, and God forbid that there is someone doing that to you. If they are, cut them out of your life. Cut them out of your life. There is here an I Ching. Let's close in. There is an I Ching hexagram here. And what you may say is the I Ching. Well, the I Ching is an ancient Chinese source of divination, or method of divination. And what it does is it goes back for thousands of years. And in fact, it's the oldest form of divination that we are aware of. It's not to say there weren't others in the past. As we see, our ancestors were very, very good at doing things 27,000 years ago, so I'm sure they has plenty of other tricks up their sleeve. Now, I Ching depends on how lines are set out into hexagram, the hexagram being 6 lines. If it's an unbroken line, like this one here, that is masculine and it is yang. The broken lines are female principle and they are yin. So hexagrams are a mixture of yin and yang, and depending on how they're placed with one another, you get a result. Now let me just see what this one is. It's a yang yang, a yin, a yang, a yin, and a ying. Okay, well, what that is, and this might be of interest to what we were just talking about, that is Ku Mei, kind of proprietary or ownership sort of thing is what it means in the Chinese. It's sometimes called the marrying maiden, and it's about subordinating the will or the need to accept what cannot be changed. Now, you may find yourself in a suspended situation because of changes another person is going through, or because of events which are beyond your control. At the same time, a sudden turn of events can place you in a very unfamiliar environment where you have no experience to draw upon. Now, you can't do much about that situation other than wait to see how events unfold. Now, interestingly, it's not, if I'm reading I Ching, it's not uncommon to receive this hexagram when you are seeking partnership with somebody who is currently unavailable, if you know what I mean. They're not available. And I'll go back to the ancient Chinese sort of imagery here, as the second wife or concubine, you may be the other woman or you may be the other man. The hidden influence here underscores a time of waiting for some type of change or completion to sort itself out. Now, there's no reason to think that you can't achieve the object of your desire. However, the act of bringing yourself down, subordination, holding back is necessary. It's necessary. And that's not an easy thing for most people, is it? See, what this, in quo may, the situation can appear or change suddenly, and you are forced to adapt to uncertainty as best you can, okay? Now, the lines in this hexagram refer to the changes a woman faces when she marries and goes into a new home and adopts a new family. In the ancient Chinese tradition, the woman joined the family of the husband. Now, it's not her ancestral home, and she won't be immediately accepted. And I think what this I Ching suggests and shows is that adapting to conventionally accepted standards of behavior might be necessary. This means that although the situation may not be what you had hoped for, you will learn a lot about your patterns of thought, your defenses, and even the wisdom that comes from allowing life to lead you into the unfamiliar. Since, and as I say, I often call this the marrying maiden, since this thing is, for me, the marrying maiden, success comes after a period of testing. Often the second wife, or the concubine, to use the old Chinese expression, gives birth to the heir, and so she rises to become the first wife. Just because you are wandering on a road you have never traveled before, don't be dismayed. Rather than push forward willfully with demands, acquiesce and let the situation unfold is what I would say. But there's a particularly interesting card here in the center, and let's have a look at it. Well, actually, before we do that, there is something else we can have a look at the imagery while we're looking at it, because the imagery of this card also fits in with a message that I want to talk about, and it has to do with that thing there where you feel that you may in some way be oppressed, and it really is this, that there is nothing you cannot be, there is nothing you cannot do, there is nothing you cannot have. You are the most magnificent, the most remarkable, the most splendid being God has ever created. For who could reject such a wondrous magnificence? But you do not know who you are, and you think you are a great deal less. You are your own rule maker, and you are the only one who can assess how you are doing. All you see in the world is your idea about it. Life will take off for you when you choose for it to. An idea becomes a thought becomes a word. Say it out loud, because words have power and echo throughout all eternity. A word becomes an action, and if you are going to do it, start, then go all the way. Seize it, rejoice in it, and let no power on earth take it from you. Anyway, let's have a look at her. She is, of course, Kali. Now, Kali is a goddess in Hindu religion, and her consort is Shiva, and you can see Shiva's third eye there, perhaps. Now, Kali is often she's one of the 10 manifestations of the Supreme Being. And she is the personification, if you like, the highest form of power in the cosmos. She's the greatest example of power, of strength, of luminosity that exists in creation. She's usually seen either standing over or dancing over her consort, who is Shiva. But in this case, we don't see her. Well, until we look closely, we might think that she's dancing together, but is that what I think it is? I won't draw it in any closer, but there's definitely the entry suggested there. And so she's more than dancing with her consort. She's doing horizontal dancing with her consort. Shiva. Now, this is a particularly fortuitous card for you. And as I say, it influences this, where are we? It influences this Venus of Willendorf that we saw before. Why, might you say, is this important to you? Well, I'll tell you what, I think that in January a Pisces is going to be important to you, and possibly an Aries as well. I'm really getting that feeling because this is a woman who has the spirituality and sensitivity of Pisces with the ambition of Aries. And that, of course, can sometimes lead to a bit of a rough ride. Pisces gives her sensitivity and inspiration, and Aries gives her leadership and self-confidence. And I think these are two things that you will be displaying during this period. My comments are the same before about genders of these court cards. She is a woman of adaptability, of persistent energy, of calm authority, powers of attraction. Now you are going to find that you are very attractive to other people during this period. You will be making a very powerful first impression. This is a woman who can be generous, but you know, she can often be intolerant and impatient with opposition. Now, what about her character? Well, she has immense capacity for friendship and love, but that's really at her initiative, really. She is the one who's going to make the move towards friendship. And in some respects, there's something of a, I'm not saying that this is applying to you, but with her, I think that there is something of a self-complacent vanity, even a snobbery about her. Now, she can brood, come to a wrong decision as a result of that brooding, and react with savagery. She can be quick to take offense and harbor revenge without good cause. She can also find herself, what would you call it, sort of a little bit depressed sometimes, a bit down in the dumps. And what she tends to do to get over that is she takes to the liquor to get over that. So I've got nothing against alcohol whatsoever. And I think that you shouldn't be too concerned about it, but just be aware that this is coming up, saying that she can self-medicate to excess, if that makes sense, about her sometimes feeling down about things. I think what this is saying to you, though, that you will be going through something of a process of self-discovery and remembering your power. You got to where you are today by resolving difficulties in the past, and now you are a stronger character. It's a time to express your natural power and beauty and move on from the past. She knows what she wants, this woman, and she has something of a very active life. I'd had this thought in mind, and it is, I am a radiant being, and I am filled with light and with love. Because I think that's your fate for this month, is to step up to those things which have been asked of you. Now here we have the Chief Seattle. Seattle was an Indian chief, of course. This is interesting here. There's a depiction of a whale here and lightning between the two, which goes to show the great bond between the animal kingdom and humanity. Well, of course, we are all nature. We aren't separate to nature. We are a part of nature ourselves. Seattle was a chief up in the state of Washington in northwestern continental United States, and was instrumental in assisting the integration of settlers or invaders, how you may want to call that, along with the Indian tribes, to such great effect that the city of Seattle in Washington is called after him. Now, I see him as being air, and he's in stones, which has the reference to earth. So air and earth are enemies, and they weaken each other, so we can expect some conflict in the makeup of this person. And some of the qualities of the person, who may well be a Taurus or an Aries, that you may know of, I call him the Prince of the Chariot of Earth, is someone who's competent, hardworking, reliable, someone who's actually quite materialistic, I think. Someone who's actually very good and quite solid when it comes to practical matters, energetic and enduring. Someone who can adapt to circumstances, which is what I think you'll be doing, and turning them to your advantage with a slow, steady, well thought out plan. Just be careful, though, that if you do get fixed upon something, that people don't think that you may be lacking in emotion, because I think sometimes this guy can be almost entirely lacking in emotion, and he can make no attempt to understand ideas or outlooks of other people if they conflict with his own. So I think that this is a period in your life when you're going to be taking responsibility for your life and becoming focused. Now, interestingly, I think you could be quite good at sport, or you may be thinking about getting into an exercise routine, even if it's just something like walking or running around the park with a dog. I think you'd be interested in building and designing things. Now, when I say that, it's not just doing a replica of the George Washington Bridge, but I think it could also extend to, you'll have an interest in clothing, in fashion, hair, makeup, that type of thing. I think that you not only will you have an interest in it, but you'll be very good at it. I think you'll be trying new things in those areas there. Putting a lot of effort into practical things at the moment, which means to me, I think there's a chance here that you'll be doing a lot around practical things at work, not over-intellectualizing things, but using practical attention to things at the home and at work. Yeah. It's a time in your life when you're going to be goal-oriented and want to sort out the material side of your life come hell or high water. You know, those things like health, career things, and those things that are tangible to you. Well, finally we come to this guy, and this is... I won't bother about changing the thing over. Actually, can we see him properly? There he is. The Magician. Well, here he is. He has the signature of the suits of the Tarot. There's the wand. We know it's a wand because there's flames coming out. A suit, a cup, and this stone, of course, represents Earth, which in other decks might be called pentacles or discs. The Magician has crystals coming from his left eye here, and that suggests to me that he's able to actually ascertain the true nature of existence. However, underlying emotions, which are suggested by this thing coming up and by this figure of the moon to me, those underlying emotions may be coming to the rise. The Magician is the first card with a number. It's the first time the spirit has become incarnate in matter. And the Magician is really all about good starts and good beginnings. What's important about the Magician is this, although I may look, it's about new beginnings, it's about the opportunity to do something. I'm going to look at this Norse rune here, and you may be able to see it. This Norse rune here, that's the rune of Fehu. Now when I see Fehu, I see it as representing earned income. It represents your career as well as your wealth, status, and position. And Fehu is a rune of success and attainment. Drawing this rune indicates that prosperity is coming towards you in some form, often, but not always, in relation to money. Now, the type of gain, if I'm doing a rune casting, depends on the runes that are rounding, but the rune really, which we don't have, of course, but this thing announces the arrival of that which you have worked for. You will overcome opposition. And the advice of this rune really is to continue with the plan that you already have underway. If there were in a rune casting negative runes around it, which obviously there aren't here, I'd just say just conserve your position at the moment. But we don't have that concern. Here we have this symbol here. It's an ancient biblical Hebrew letter, the second letter of the ancient biblical Hebrew alphabet, Beth, signifying the number 2. And it's the first letter of the story of creation. Beth represents the beginning of duality, with the one divinity bringing forth a created world. So there could be both a giver, the creator, and a receiver, the created world, for the creator to bestow benefits upon. Now this creates a dramatic leap from the absolute oneness for the ability for there to be two. It also creates the possibility for all duality and opposites, yes and no, hot and cold, man and woman, up and down, and so often, and so forth. Now, the literal meaning of this letter means house, and it represents the universal concept of a container or a vessel. Thus, the created world is meant to house within it the spiritual. The physical world is meant to be a place for the divinity's glory to manifest. The body is meant to contain the soul, allowing for it to act in this world. The dual world actually contains within it the ultimate oneness, but it is concealed. I've got to say that this thing really for you is, speaking of fantastic opportunity that is open there for you now. Use what is at your disposal to take advantage of that opportunity, because in addition to all these other fantastic cards around here, you have great things in store for you in this month. That's the way it is for you.
Well, there you go. January 2020, I have to say this, that you were absolutely fantastic during that reading, and I loved doing it for you. I think this is going to be a great year for you, and have a fantastic January. And all I have to say is this, and remember always that you are a legend, and I look forward to seeing you again next month. Until then, bye for now.